Hello, how are you doing? Today I'm sharing a story that is found in Second Chronicles 20, verse 1 to 30. This one always gets me. It's about a helpless person seeking and reaching out to a limitless God and that God intervening. And the lessons that I draw from it always change every time I encounter this scripture. And this is what I thought would be helpful in our time, in our situations, and pretty much it's timeless. So it can apply to every season of life. If you believe in God or if you need more from life, Second Chronicles 20, verse 1 to 30 is just going to blow your mind. It's just going to blow your mind because it shows you how a great God can do amazing things when a puny person, when a person who's desperate, has no power, has no options, reaches out to him and humbles themselves under his leading. Now, I expect you to read. Don't take my word for it. So read Second Chronicles 20, verse 1 to 30. And the lessons that I'm going to share are drawn strictly from there. The first one is that Jehoshaphat. Okay, let me tell you the story first. It's about Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat was a king in Israel, and he was told that there were these armies of his enemies that had teamed up, made an alliance, and they were coming to fight against him. And it was a mighty army. I think 5 or so kings came together and they were going to fight against him. He had no chance. And when he was being told of this plan of these enemies against him, they were already on their way. Almost like there was really nothing he could do. There was no alliance he could seek. There was no preparation he could have done that could have made him ready for this battle. So what did he do? He sought the Lord. He just went to God, to the temple, and said, "You know what, God? I don't know what to do. These people are coming against us. You told us not to destroy them when our parents were coming into this land, and yet here they are coming against us, and really we are helpless. Help." And as he was speaking, and God, God's spirit came on one of the priests that was present there, and he gave them a battle plan, what to do and how to do it. And he obliged, he listened. It was ridiculous because he was told to not fight, to just get ready for battle and just chill. Nothing was going to happen. And they did that. They followed the instruction to the T, and they had the best victory ever. And for me, when I read it, I was like, okay, because I'm a doer. I love to execute things. And so every time somebody says, "I have a plan for you," I'm excited. Every time somebody says, "There are 3 steps that you can follow that will help you maybe with your faith or that will help you with your business," I'm usually super excited because I want to learn. I want to have steps. I want to have structure. And when somebody says, "Okay, the 3 steps are that you should chill and just trust God and then just believe, just dress up and just go stand there, don't do anything," that would be like bizarre for me. I'd be like, okay, that sounds unproductive. I want to do something. But this is what God challenged Jehoshaphat, and it wasn't an easy challenge because these were people he was afraid of, 5 kings or so that were coming against him, and the instruction was really like counterproductive. But that's how God works, and that's what I want to encourage you and me with today, so that we can understand and learn from Jehoshaphat and understand how God intervenes and what happens when you let God intervene and you follow through with the instructions that he gives you. Okay, so the first point, or I'm splitting this lesson in 3, is it 4 structured places? So it was like, first one is I'm going to talk about the situation and the reaction of the people. Then I'm going to talk about God's response. Then I'm going to talk about the battle plan and then the result. Okay, so the first one, situation and reaction of the people. And then the second one is God's response. The third one is the battle plan. And the fourth one is the result. So the situation and the reaction. So Jehoshaphat was terrified. All right. So the Bible says Jehoshaphat was terrified, and rightfully so. These were kings, big kingdoms that were teaming up against him. He had no time. He had no resources. He had no help. He had no hope. So facts demanded his attention. Facts stated against him should terrify him. That's you and me, right? in our situations and our different scenarios in our lives. You could find that, okay, I don't have a job. Okay, I don't have friends. I don't have connections. I don't know what to do. My bank account looks crazy. Oh no, I can't go to work. There's a virus. I can't do all this. Now I am stranded. What do I do? We can cry, we can break down, we can go into depression, we can steal, we can have other solutions. But Jehoshaphat, when he was stuck in a situation like that, he sought the Lord. I hope you can relate this to your situation in one or the other. Because for me, I find that there are so many situations where I get stranded, but I have an alternative, a plan B. So I can rationalize it and say, okay, I might not be able to get the job or the business I wanted, but maybe I could just, maybe this is God's will. So maybe I just do something on the side that won't satisfy, that won't that won't make me happy. That's not the thing I believe God is giving me, but what can you do? It's rationalizing. It's one way of processing things when you're stranded, and that's not God's way. For Jehoshaphat, he could have said, you know what, let me go and submit to these people. I'll be giving tribute to them, and let's just make peace. Maybe they'll take us as slaves, whatever it is. They shouldn't kill us. This is too much. I can't handle it. But he sought the Lord, and that is impressive, because in a time when you are stressed and stranded, activity seems like there is the thing you should do. When everything is falling apart, you want to do something. Seeking the Lord seems like, okay, so I'm going to be quiet. So I'm going to walk away from the situation and just go like, oh, Lord, help. It sounds very counterproductive. And I think it takes discipline and strength and really trust, knowing God and having a track record of how faithful he has been. It takes all that for you to be able to be like, okay, this looks terrible. And I am not calm. I'm terrified of what is happening. I am stranded. This looks like my end. This is terrible. I don't know what to do. Yet, let me seek the Lord for help. And that's what Jehoshaphat did. And it's interesting to see that when he did that, he called, as a king, he called on the people, let's fast and seek the Lord. And the people took the cue from him. They came to Jerusalem and they prayed and they sought the Lord. I love that. I love that. What is the vibe you give to people around you? Your family, the people you influence, the people who look up to you when things are messed up. You know, when you're stranded and you're struggling and you're like, oh my goodness, you find that that pressure, that fear will be passed on to the people who are looking up to you. Your children, your neighbors. Sometimes we even pass the fear through WhatsApp groups and whatever. You're forwarding the fear, sending, because you are panicking. Seek the Lord. And when you seek the Lord and you're calm in that space, not calm like you're not afraid, but calm like I'll seek you first. I am panicking, but I'll seek you first. You're passing that same calm, that same reassurance to everybody who follows you. You might not have an answer yet, but there's so many good things that will come from seeking the Lord and from being calm. And the second thing is he remembered God's promises. You know, so he didn't just come to God and say, help, help, help. No, he was like, you know what, Lord, let's go through this. You promised us that when we come in the time of plagues, in the time of calamity, in the time of famine, when we come to this temple and seek your face, you will hear us. And you told us that this is our land. Now, if these people are coming to take over and to fight and kill us here, then what does that mean about what you say to us? Does that mean you are lying? Does that mean that you are not faithful to your word? So he came to him with the promises of God. And this requires that you have understanding, that you have spent time with God enough. You have spent time in his word to at least know some promises that he has made. Because otherwise you just come and cry. And it's hard for God to work. It's hard. But God does not work with cries. Just empty cries. You don't even know what you're crying for. But you should be able to come to God and say, you have promised me in your word that you're my protector, my provider. You have promised in your word that you will cover me. You have promised in your word that there'll be no one that will harm me. That is holding God accountable to his very word. It's not like he forgot, but that's how God works. He gives us promises and he expects us to use our authority and our free will, the promises he has given us, back to him and to trust him with that. And that's what Jehoshaphat did. He remembered. And then when he remembered, he brought it back to God. And the third thing he did was to come with clean hands. This situation that was here was not his fault. He was like, okay, God, remember when our ancestors were coming and they wanted to destroy these people who are coming against us. You told them not to destroy them. You said, okay, no, don't destroy them, go around them. And our ancestors listened and went around them. Now, these are the very people we spared and showed mercy to that are coming to attack us. It's not my fault. I didn't do this. And this is kind of tricky because you might think, oh my goodness, then I can't come to God because most of the things I'm suffering now are my fault. No, God says in His word, which is another promise, that if you confess, He's faithful and just to forgive you and cleanse you from all unrighteousness. Now, if the situation and the calamity and the crisis you're facing is because of your own fault, then confess. And after you confess, you say, God, you do not remember my sin because I confessed it. Now come to my rescue. Because you have promised in your word that you'll forgive me, now come to my rescue. So come with clean hands. And if your hands are not clean, confess. It cleans the hands. His promise that is that when you are falling short and you confess, He will clean you and you are as good as new before Him, and you are now able to claim your clean hands and receive the support and the rescuing He says He will give to the righteous. Now, the fourth thing that Jehoshaphat did was admission. He admitted his powerlessness. This is tough because he was admitting this in front of people. He's a king, and he's like coming humbly before God and says, you know what, I don't know what to do. And how hard is that? Sometimes we don't want to act like we don't know what to do. People are looking up to you. Your children are counting on you. Everybody's counting on, and it's counting on you, and you're like, Maybe sometimes it's not even people counting on you. You just want to feel self-sufficient and you're like independent. I want to just feel like I can do all things. But God wants you to admit those fears, those weaknesses, those gaps that you see, and come to Him and say, you know what, I am powerless. I really do not know what to do right now. You've given me this role, you've given me this authority, and there's a battle coming. I feel stressed, I feel scared, I really have no plan. And that's what Jehoshaphat did. And though it was not easy for a king, God honored that. And we'll see that in the second section, which is the response, God's response. Now, what did God say? As soon as this Jehoshaphat was praying and pleading with God and finishing his prayer, the Spirit of the Lord fell on one of the priests there. It's so amazing the protocol God uses. He didn't just speak to a random person. He really followed the order because he knew that this priest had respect already among these people. So he wasn't a random person who'd just be like, hey, God said. And that's like a word on its own for us to be able to know that, to test the spirits, right? To test this. Don't just say because this person, a man or woman of God, has said, or because this person has said this, they have heard this from God, then it's solid. No. Check the word for yourself. Check with God for yourself. God is not a God of disorder. He will speak to you, confirm to you what He already said in His word. He will not come against His word. He will not come against His very order, right? So I like that he spoke through this Levite. And his response was the battle plan. Oh, I love it. So the Lord came to him, this Levite, and gave him a step-by-step battle plan. And I love in verse 15 when God came through and owned this battle. In verse 15, he says, the battle is mine. The battle is not yours, it's the Lord's. What makes God own battles, guys? What would mean for you for God to own your battle? Your struggle, your job hand, your career hand, your marriage, your desire to have children, your desire to build a business, anything that is placed on your heart that you feel is impossible. What would it mean for God to arise in that area and say, this is not your battle, this is mine? Because when God told that to Jehoshaphat and the Israelites, we know what happened? The whole battle plan changed. The whole landscape changed. Now, instead of them being small against a group or an alliance of kings, they were now in majority because God was like, you know what, guys, this is not for you, this is mine. And the battle plan was weird. It was a weird battle plan, but God gave them a strategy. So first of all, He owned the battle, then He gave them a strategy for fighting it. And the strategy was that they should not fight. They should just get ready, get dressed, and go stand at a certain point and see the salvation of the Lord. Not that they should just chill in their tents, in their homes. No, He said, get dressed for battle. You're not going to fight, but get dressed for battle and take position. And that battle plan had details. It was very detailed. And sometimes this worries me a little bit because sometimes in our lives we don't expect such from God. We expect a general plan, not details. But God is God of the details. When He says He has owned the battle, He's not going to say, okay, now fight it anyhow. No, He's going to give you the step-by-step guide. Dress up, wake up early in the morning, dress up, go stand at the valley of whatever. Stand there and watch the salvation of the Lord. And that's what Jehoshaphat and the Israelites did. They got a detailed battle plan after God owned the battle. Now that is God's response. The third point was the third section is now the battle plan. The battle plan, after God gave the direction, still Jehoshaphat the next day before he left, he was talking to wise counsel, people who could counsel him, were talking about the battle, and they said, well, let's put singers in front. Let's put the singers in front. And I love that wise counsel still worked, because he had sought the Lord and the Lord had told him what to do. He didn't change the plan that God wanted to do, but he consulted his wise counsel, like, okay, the Lord has told us to just go and stand. So what do you guys think? They were like, okay, yeah, we're going to do what the Lord says. It's not like there's a question about it, but let's put singers in front. Why did they put singers in front? They saw history. In the past, when they went to battle and they won, they were usually praise and worship singers in the front. They were singing to God and dancing to God. And those people who were singing and dancing were always in the front. That's how they always did. That's how history happened in the desert and after the desert. And so they were like, okay, let's continue with what the Lord had already told us. So even when the Lord gives you new instructions, there are some instructions that he has told you in the past. It doesn't mean discard them. It just means add this new instruction to what you already know. So this wise counsel told Jehoshaphat, put the singers in front as we do what the Lord has told us to do already. And so the singers were a battle plan, a weird battle plan, the people dancing, and they're like, hey, 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 and the people, they're coming, five armies, an alliance of 5 kings coming, and you're there saying, praise be to God, dancing and going in front. It's crazy. But that's what happened. Now, this is what happened. They go to the battle. As they were singing and dancing and going to the place where God told them, there was confusion in the camp of the enemy. These 5 kings, the alliance, a powerful alliance, they're getting confused. We don't know why. We don't know what happened. We don't know the details, but they started killing each other. And they finished each other, like completely slaughtered each other. And the time the Israelites were there watching, they could just see blood. When they got there, they saw blood everywhere. There was no survivor. They didn't sweat, apart from the dance maybe, but they didn't sweat. There was no wounded soldiers. There was no bleeding. There was nothing. And they got there and they just started collecting the plunder. They had won victory. And how did they win it? God gave them a battle plan, a detailed battle plan. They're obliged to it. And they praised God for it. They went to the battle in the most unlikely and prepared way. They were prepared spiritually, but physically they looked unprepared because they were just dressed up and they were dancing. And God told them to just go. So they went and they won. And that is what happened. Now the result. The result is not just that they won, but they won in a big way. For 3 days, they had to go to collect the plunder. So they went to collect the plunder, the gold and everything that the enemies had. They would go first day, second day, 3 days for a battle that did not fight, for blood that did not shed. They went and collected the plunder. And because of this story spread far and wide, and there was peace on every side for Israel. Guys, peace, the result was they won, 3 days collecting plunder, and peace on every side. Every side. This is how God fights his battles. And these stories are not told to us just for fun and go like, ooh, that's amazing. No, God made sure that we know the story so that we can know what to expect from him. That we can expect all these trials, that we can expect times of terror, like Jehoshaphat went through. He went through a time of terror, a time of fear, but he had to understand that there was power in God. And this wasn't his first battle. If you go back from Chronicles 20, go back a couple of chapters, you see that he was fighting another battle in the past, and he fought it in his flesh. He partnered with a king, another king. He didn't consult God. He partnered with another king, and he lost that battle terribly, and he almost died. The king he partnered with died at the battle. So he had learned through experience that, okay, if I partner with people, they have weaknesses. They can die, they can fail. There's no guarantee. But if I partner with God, there will be peculiar things. But why can I lose? God is the source of my life. If he lets me down, then there's no help for me. But we are here having our own solutions. We're here having our plan B's, thinking, okay, I can ask God, but still I have to work on this. If you're not clear on what God has told you after you've asked him, don't move. Tell him, God, I'm not moving because I don't know. I can't hear you. And if you struggle with hearing from God, check what you feed yourself every day, because it's hard to hear from a God that you rarely talk to. If you are busy hardly reading his word, and you're listening to gossip, listening to TV, listening to so many things that are busy in your head, it'll be hard for you in a time of battle, in a time of need, to think God is going to be your help. So in a time of peace, in a time where you're not panicked, in a time where of your rest, you have to build these disciplines where you explore God, where you hang with God, where you get to know him. And then in a time of battle, you will know that I am terrified. I am terrified, because God is not going to take away the terrifying things, but he's going to go with you in those terrifying things and show you amazing things like he did for Jehoshaphat. So what is it in your life right now that needs a God who is a mighty man of war, a God who will fight in peculiar ways? Things that I desire for me, for example, when I read this story, I'm like, you know what? There's a way I can do my business. There's a way I can build my business. That makes sense. That people will be like, yeah, she did 1, 2, 3, but there's a way I can win in my business. That is peculiar. But that means I'll do what Jehoshaphat did: pray and fast and seek his face and do weird things that he leads me to do. And the funny thing with God is, when you're asking him, for example, fix my marriage, he will not just come and fix your husband or your spouse or your wife. What he would do is he'll start fixing you. So he'll tell you, okay, be nice. All right. Say hello. Okay, don't be mad. And you'll be like, what? How am I fighting this battle this way? But that's God's way. You'll be like, I want to build a strong business, or I want a promotion in my career. So this is a battle because nobody wants me to be promoted in my work, whatever, whatever. And God will be saying, okay, work harder. Be like, what? I'm already working hard. He's like, no, support that friend of yours who's struggling. Show kindness. You'd be like, I already do so much. But God's ways are peculiar. God's ways may be foolishness to people. But if you understand what you're fighting for, if you understand how God works, then you know. And just have an expectation of a plan that is like 3 day long, and peace on every side. The enemies of Israel, they were just scared on their own. They're like, oh my goodness, a God that fights this way, we don't want to stand against him. They didn't even have to do a marketing plan where it's like, there was a God, he did this. They didn't have to. The fear spread itself and granted them peace. Because when God fights your battles, he comes there to fight one battle, but wins so many other battles. When you fight for yourself, you might be fighting for a promotion. You might make enemies along the way. You might make a mess. You might be stressed and not be available at home. You might be like hurting relationships. It might be so much of a mess because you're fighting on your own and your vision is limited. But when you fight God's way, it might look like foolishness. When you do extra work, when you think you deserve more money, but you're given less money and you still do extra work, it might look like foolishness, and people will be like, yeah, it's so unfair for you. But no. This is how I'm fighting my battle, because God is fighting in those secret places I can't see. He's fighting in those secret meetings I can't go in. He's there, he's showing up, he's showing out for me. Right? So this is what I learned. And in these times where we're dealing with the virus, it's really even more important for you to understand that if you're stressed, if you're panicking, if you're afraid in one or the other, that's a call that God is putting on you. It's like, okay, you're stressed, you're panicked, there's nothing you can do about it. What are you going to do? When Jehoshaphat was terrified, what did he do? He prayed and called for a time of fasting. You panicked, you're scared. What do? Watch CNN, watch more news. You're going to cause more stress. You're going to cause more mess in your life. You're going to be scattered. You're going to be ineffective in so many ways. But when you're stressed, afraid, and panicked, call on the name of the Lord. Call on a fast. Pray and seek the Lord. He's faithful. Jeremiah 33 verse 3 is one of my favorite verses. Call unto me and I'll answer you, and I'll show you great and mighty things that you do not know. Call on God. This was amazing for me to share with you, and I hope it has impacted you one or the other. I wish you all the very best. Bye-bye.